Thank you so much for having me. This is my third Mintbean talk that I've given, so I'm a really big fan of Mintbean, what they got going on, what they do. I think they're just a really great company, and I'm someone who is really kind of on this same journey with all of you guys. I'm someone who I'm still in a boot camp. I'm getting towards the end of my time at Lambda School, and I'm kind of out there trying to figure out how to get a job and do all that. And I've tried to really get involved in open source and contribute to that. And I'm really excited because this is going to be the first talk that I'll be doing on Svelte. So I'm going to go ahead and get my screen share set up. Just give me one moment here. And feel free to unmute and just ask me questions. I used to be a classroom teacher in a previous life, so I'm really used to being interrupted and asked questions because this can be some pretty technical stuff. So it's good that I'm getting some feedback of am I making sense, or do you guys have any questions? So please feel free to just interrupt me at any time. I won't mind. And let's get this going. All right, my screen share is all good. Cool. Okay, optimize your site for SEO with Elder.js. If you don't know what SEO is search engine optimization, and it is how does Google find my stuff so that when someone searches for a thing, they will find my thing. That is essentially what SEO is. And let's first talk about what Elder is. Elder is an opinionated static site generator built for SEO. And it is, so just give me 1 second to fix my Zoom here. Let me do that and this. There we go. An opinionated static site generator built for SEO. Now, going fully into why static site generators and why Svelte specifically are good for SEO is a little bit outside the scope of this talk. The most important thing you need to know is a fast website is going to be better for SEO. The faster your website will respond to Google's web crawler, the better score it's going to get. At least that's one of the main metrics that they look for. SEO is very complicated. It has a wide range of metrics that go into your SEO score, but speed is one that we know is very important and that we can optimize for with static site generators and with Svelte in particular. Now, if you do know what a static site generator is, you're probably thinking, don't we have thousands of these things? And yes, we do. But Nick Reese over here, he has created a really, really awesome static site generator. And was built for this website called elderguide.com. It's a website for getting information about, I think, elderly care facilities. And for him, it's about transparency of information. He wants to have a website that's going to be very easy for people to get the information they need to make a decision about a care home for their relatives. And this is a very important, very, very important decision that most people will have to make at some point in their lives. And he found that there was a problem with static site generators because yes, we have thousands of these things, but static site generators aren't made for large sites. And let's go a little bit into what a static site generator is, just because I've already used the term a million times and haven't really defined it yet. A website is really just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You may write something like React, or you may even be writing Ruby. You may be writing something that won't necessarily be understood by the browser. If you were to take one of your React projects and just copy and paste that code into your browser's console, your browser won't know what to do with it. It'll error. It'll say like, why are all these brackets in your JavaScript? This doesn't make any sense. And that's because most of what we write in today is something that is compiled or transpiled into something that the browser can actually understand. What we're doing here with Elder is we're using Svelte. Svelte is a framework built on top of JavaScript. It's really nice to write in. It's really concise. It's really fits your mental model of how to code really well. Whereas writing HTML is a pain. If you've ever tried to actually just make a website writing entirely in HTML inline CSS, it's a huge pain. we created these tools called static site generators that lets us write in languages that we really like and are really nice and easy to write in, but then transform that code into something that the browser can understand, and that more importantly, Google's web crawlers can understand. That's kind of the idea of a static site generator. And then Svelte in particular is really good because of how it's architected in terms of its internals, which again, we can't really go too far into. Thankfully, when we do our demo, I'm going to show you a couple times simply how fast it is with like just measure of time. So if you are interested about the theory and like why it's working, you can go deeper into that. Rich Harris has a lot of really fantastic talks. He's the creator of Svelte. But I can kind of just like show you the money in that sense. And if you want to know more, like feel free to contact me after. This is all really interesting stuff. It's like really low level stuff we can't really get into. But this is the really important part, is that you can build a website very fast. If you've ever used Gatsby and you try to use Gatsby to build a website that is thousands and thousands of pages, it could take you a really long time to actually build that website. So I was talking about how we have these websites that we write in one language and transform them into another. The time to transform your whole website may take a long time. Now here we see that what Nick has done is he's created a couple of benchmarks for us. One of these is just with a budget 4-core virtual machine. So this would be like if you just were renting like a box from Amazon or someone like that. You could build 18,000 pages in 8 minutes. And then if you have your kind of own optimized server set up for this on bare metal, you can do it in about less than a minute and a half. And building 18,000 pages in under a minute and a half, like that is insane. Building that same amount of pages with Gatsby, you have to go through a lot of work and optimizations to get even close to that. And then on the right, we get these very detailed logs. On the right, that's milliseconds. So these are all being counted in milliseconds or even fractions of a millisecond. And it helps you see exactly which parts of your project specifically are slower than other parts. So we see at the very, very bottom, the HTML is what's taking the longest because that's kind of like the final thing that we're actually shipping to the browser. There's a ton of other features for Elder.js as well that we're not going to really get into. I just want to give you an idea of what it is, and then I'll do a little live demo and showing how to get set up, build a couple pages and routes, and get it deployed. We're not going to talk about short codes or plugins or hydration or any of that stuff, but just know that this is a very, very powerful static site generator. This gives you a lot of things that you wouldn't necessarily get out of the box for some of those other thousands of static site generators. Hooks being one of the coolest. And this is kind of just how you pass data around in your project. Again, we don't really have a ton of time to go into that. But what we are going to talk about, what I'm going to demonstrate is routing specifically. This is what's called explicit routing instead of parameterized routing, which you would see in something like Express. And it's a very specific kind of paradigm. But once you kind of wrap your mind around, it's actually pretty simple. We have these 3 functions over here on the left. We have the all, the permalink, and the data. And this is how we're creating the actual route of our website. So you see where it says all async slug simple. What that is doing is whatever your website is, if my website was ajcwebdev.com, I would go to ajcwebdev.com/simple. That would be the slug that would take me to the route. And then once I go to that route, the data, that's what's going to be spit out. It has a title that's going to be put on the page, and then it has some content that's going to show me, which is just a little hello world inside an H2 tag. On the right is a Svelte template. So if you've never used Svelte before, then this may look a little foreign. If you've ever used Vue before, this may look very familiar because what it's doing is it's separating our script, our style, and our markup. This is one of the things that's really nice about Svelte and about Vue is compared to something like React, it's much more in the what's called the single file component paradigm. What that means is your whole component is within this file, and all 3 pieces that make up that component are there. Those 3 pieces being your script, which is your JavaScript, your style, which is your CSS, and then your template or your markup, which is your HTML. And that's on the bottom where it says Svelte head. You have the head tag. This is popular in things like Next and other frameworks, and that's setting the title. So when you have your browser at the very top on the tab, there'll be a title for the page. That's what that is. So it'll set that title to Elder.js route and overview, which is coming from the left. And then where it says data.title, again, it's going to give the same title. So the title that's being put on your browser's tab will also be displayed actually on the page in an H2. And then it displays the content being the H2 hello world on the left. Now, if this is a little confusing, don't worry, we're going to actually demonstrate this, and I'm going to build out a route. So we're going to kind of go through this, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what it looks like. And that is all of the slides. So we're going to go ahead and get into some coding now. What I usually do when I do these kind of talks is I'll generate the project ahead of time, but I don't need to do that this time, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my main projects folder where I do all my talks, and I'm going to create this project here. npx is just a simple little command line utility that lets you run commands. dgit is a nice little git tool that's going to take this template, Elder.js, and create a new template with this title, Mintbean -Elder.js. So we're going to copy and paste this, and we're going to see that this is going to create our project in 2 seconds. Now, like I said, I usually would do this beforehand, because for something like Redwood or for Nux, this will take 1 to 2 minutes. So we already see here that this is clearly much faster than what we're used to in terms of how we work with these sort of things. I've also got this post over here, a first look at Elder.js. If you guys want to learn more, this is at my dev2 account. I do a lot of blogging, and I'm a really big fan of kind of, knowledge sharing and all that. And I've got a part 2 that I just put out recently. So this is actually kind of turning into a longer, more in-depth series. And now we're going to cd into our project. We're going to install our dependencies. We don't have a ton of dependencies here, and we're using Rollup as our bundler, which, if you've ever used Webpack or things like that, it's a little similar. And we're going to talk about that once we get our project actually up and running. So once we install our dependencies, we're going to open our editor, and they have a little bit of a unique setup. Some of you may have done something similar to this if you've used like Less or Sass and you have like a compiler running in a different terminal. Well, basically you need to have 2 terminals running, one for your web server and then one for Rollup to watch your web server. This is just so when you make changes to your project, it automatically updates. And here we're going to open our editor, and then let's get our let's get our servers going. So I'm going to, over here, run the server. So we're doing npm run dev :server. This is going to start our development server, and our project will be listening on 3000. And don't worry too much about these kind of errors here. And then we're going to run npm run dev rollup over here in this project. Go to our terminal and get that running. Once we do this, we should be all set to actually get our project up and running. Let's pull this over here. And we're going to go to localhost 3000. One of the things that I really like about Elder is that it starts you off with a really nice kind of beginning project. And sometimes the servers are a little finicky. So let me do that. And then we're going to do that. And now we should be good to go. All right. Here is our beginning Elder.js template. I really, really like this beginning template. It's unlike any other kind of boilerplate boilerplate starter project I've seen before, because what it does is it gives you a tutorial embedded inside of the project. And what I mean by that is, see how it says about this template, it has created a bunch of these routes that are demonstrating different ways to use Elder. This is so cool. I wish every project did this. We have a really simple bare bones route like so. We also have a bunch of blog posts here. So it shows you kind of how your blog is going to be set up, and then how those pages are going to be rendered onto your home page with little summaries. So there's lots of stuff in here, and this is why I'm just going to show you really the very basics of how to get up and running, because if you want to learn more, you can just explore this template. This is what I've been doing for my series. It's really, really cool. Now that we've got this set up, the first thing I always like to do is just kind of find the home page, get ourselves oriented within our project. We have a lot of files here. We have a ton of configuration already set up for us out of the box. You don't need to worry about kind of all that. That's the whole point of these types of frameworks, is figuring out all this configuration for you so you don't have to. Your source folder is where you're going to be doing all of your coding. We have components, layouts, and routes. And inside of our route, we have a blog route, a home page route, a hooks route, and a simple route. Our home page route over here is what we're looking at. Each of these is going to be set up the same way. They each are going to have a route.js file and then a corresponding Svelte file. This is the explicit routing I was showing you before, where you have those two files, your route and your actual Svelte component. If we look here in home, this is, I'm going to delete these comments just so we can kind of see this a little more clearly. So this is those same three functions that we saw before, all, permalink, and data. And it has, our slug is just a slash, because this is just our home page. Right now we're just going to our local host, whatever your website is. If it was ajcwebdev.com, that's what would take you to the home page, because that's what we specified with that slash. And then the data is giving us these hook interfaces, and that's to do a lot more of the functionality that comes along with hooks. But if we then look at our home.svelte, this is our Svelte component. We have our script at the top. This is giving us all the components we need to do this. So the blog teaser is these blog posts. And then the clock component is this clock down here, which, as you can see, is actually tracking the time. And then we have this hook detail component, which gives you a really nice little documentation for each of the hooks, what they are, what they take, how they work. So this is all the stuff that we're not really gonna have time to talk about. But as I was saying, you know, Elder is a very, very powerful static-side generator with a lot of features. So we have our script, we have our style. And then when we get down here, that's our head right there, Elder.js.template. So if we wanted to change this to Mintbean with 3 caps and save, then we're going to see the changes reflected on the right. Bam. We want to also do the same up here and say Mintbean and woot. We save that, then we will see the changes reflected over on the right in a quick second. And there you go, Mintbean and woot. That's pretty cool. Let's create a new route. We want to create a new route that's going to just say new. And inside this route, we need a route.js file. Whoops. I'm going to do a route.js file, and then we're going to create a Svelte component. It just says new.svelte. I'm going to do module.exports. And inside here, we're going to declare all, and all of these are async functions, which is just kind of a syntactic sugar for promises. We want our slug to say new. We want to then create our permalink and send the request through. And this is just a little regular expression over here for the request. And I believe that you can actually leave this out if you want your permalink to just be the same as your slug, but I'm just gonna go ahead and write it in there. And then we have our data, which is also going to take our request object. And then this is going to be the actual data that is going to be returned. And it's going to have a, it's going to have a title that's going to say Mintbean. And then it's going to have some content. And inside of that content will be an H2 that says hello world. Paragraph tag that says woot. Okay, I think should be, oh yeah, don't need, oh, I'm in the wrong file right now. Okay, this should be in the routes.js. There we go. Okay, and then we need a comma there. I think that is it. We're then going to create our Svelte template. By default, these are all going to have these data and this data object and these helpers objects. And when you're building your site, you're going to get kind of yelled at because not all of these end up actually being defined. These are just given to you by default, because it's kind of like how Elder passes data around. But if you're getting an error saying, hey, your helper variable here is not defined, don't really worry about it too much. Then we're just going to write a little bit of CSS right there. And then we're going to create our Svelte head, which is going to take the data.title, which said Mintbean, as we saw before. And then we're going to have a little link. This just takes us back to our home page. We're then going to have the title on the page. And then this is the actual content, which will have the H2 and the little woot. And if we save all that, we should be good to go. Look down here, waiting for changes. So let's let that notice the changes. Once that is good to go, we're going to go over to, oh wait, we have to do one other thing. Now, this is a fairly new project, so these are the types of little developer experience type things that I imagine will be ironed out at some point. We have to restart our server because we created a new folder and some new files here. If you're just changing files that are already there, it'll see the changes and automatically update. If you're creating new files, it's going to get a little confused and you have to restart the server so it becomes aware of all of those new files. Now, if we go to /new, which is what we created here for our slug, we're going to see this content. There you go. There is our new page. So that's how we create new routes and new pages. That's pretty much going to be all I'm going to show for that. But one last thing I want to do is this is set up for deployment really, really simply. We see all of this. This is going to be our build command, which is going to build our website, which, as we say, happens very quickly. And then it publishes it all to our public folder over there. So this is where it's generating the static site generator generates your site and then throws it all into that public folder. Then that public folder is what Netlify puts on the internet for the whole world to see. We're going to go to netlify.com. If you don't have a Netlify account, highly recommend you get one. Everything I'm showing you is going to be totally free. We're going to connect our site to GitHub. This is really nice because it gives us all of our projects right here. We just have to search for our project. And I did not even put this on my GitHub repo yet. So what we have to do here is you have to actually initialize a Git repo and put it online. So we're going to git init, initialize empty Git repository. We're going to add all of that to the staging area and then create our first commit. We're going to change our branch to main. We're going to then create a new repository that is going to be called, and this is kind of like my process, by the way, for these talks, that I do a project called test, and then I write out a whole script of what I'm going to do in the talk. And that way I don't do anything dumb during the talk. Then we go Mintbean, Elder.js. This is just going to create a blank Git repository, and then we're going to take our whole project that's on our computer and push it up to that repository. We need to set the remote to this link, which is our Git repository that was just created. And then once we do that, then we are going to actually push it, git push u origin, git push u origin main. Okay, so let's do this. Hold on, something didn't work here. I messed up the git branch main. There we go. Okay, now git push u. There we go. It's funny. Git is like the most common tool that we use. It's like what everyone has to learn to do all this. And it's always, always, always where my margin of error comes in for these talks. Okay, now we got our Git project here, which means now we can go back to Netlify. And this should be able to see our project now. This will be Mintbean Elder. And now we can select our website. Because we have the netlify.toml, it automatically includes our build commands and publish directory. Now you may be thinking, hey, you've been talking this whole time about how fast this thing builds, so this should just, be built and be put online in like seconds, right? Well, not exactly. The reason for that is because what's happening here is it's not just a computer running a build command. A better way of what you should think about this is imagine you had to run that build command on your computer, but you had to start from your computer being turned off. Your computer is turned off, you have to turn it on, boot the whole computer up, open your terminal, then execute the command. That wouldn't happen in seconds, right? It'd take whatever the length of time it takes for your computer to start. Because that's what Netlify is doing here. They are starting up a computer just for you, and then they're going to do the actual build command. Now in here, so these are these errors I was telling you about, these not defining all of your helper functions, so you don't really need to worry about that. Well, if you look right here, built 20 pages in 1.26 seconds. This is your site actually building. So this is the part that is variable and that takes a really long time for other static site generators. The rest of this startup cost in terms of getting your computer set to do the build, that's going to happen no matter what. But this is what is going to be drastically faster than almost any other static site generator used. So the whole thing deployed in under a minute, which is pretty nice. And then if we go to our preview deploy, we're going to see our website. What I want to do first, though, is I also want to give us a nice little domain name as well. So we can actually set our custom domain here. And you're going to have netlify.app at the end no matter what, but you can just send this to whatever you want. So if we do that, now we have this kind of nice little URL here, mintbean-elder.js.netlify.app. Here's our website that we edited, and here is our new route that we created. And that is the whole presentation. Let me get my Zoom back up. Cool.
Awesome. That was super, super fast, and damn.
Yeah.
There's a lot of learnings packed in like 36 minutes. Anthony, quick question. Would you be able to provide us the links for GitHub on the current event channel?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm usually try to be organized with all my links and whatnot, but we're getting close to the holidays, so kind of was winging this one. But yes, I can definitely send you the links to both. I'll send you the test repository, which kind of had the script, and then I'll also send you the one that we just created that you guys just watched me create, and then that should have all of the information you guys need. So there's that.
That's perfect. Awesome. Yeah, no, that was super helpful. I actually really like how you broke that down into the concept and then the walkthrough. That's how I learn best. And yeah, it was super helpful.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Any
I like that kind of format of, like you want to give people some context. So like when they actually are seeing you build the project, it's not like totally random, but it's like you also don't want to overwhelm them with like a million slides of code beforehand. So it's definitely it's a balance.
Yeah, no, you did that balance really well. Guys, again, small group, if you have any questions, just, open up your mic, and if you feel comfortable, um, ask him direct questions, or if you just want to maybe drop them in chat. We'll be here for a couple more minutes if anyone has any questions.
I'm curious if anyone here has ever used Svelte before, has seen Svelte before, if this was like totally new to you, or if you guys were already like, oh, I've been on the Svelte train for years. I'm kind of curious because it's a framework that it's up and coming. It's nowhere near the size of something like a React or a Vue, but it's has a really great team behind it, and it was created by Rich Harris, who's a graphics editor at the New York Times. He really created it partly for things like animations and a lot of stuff that I didn't necessarily show in this talk, but it's a really great framework. It's a really great place to get involved and contribute if you're looking to get involved in open source, because it's at the point where it's established. People know what it is. People know that it's serious, but it's still growing. And if you want to get involved and you want to, actually have an impact and contribute to an open source project, I would look at projects like Elder. There's another one called Svelte Kit, which is coming up now. That's going to be a pretty big deal. There's Jungle.js, there's plenty. So there's a lot of frameworks now that are coming out in the Svelte space. And yeah, it's really cool community to be involved in. There's a lot of really great work going on. You'll learn a lot.
Yeah, we actually did a hackathon in Svelte about, I think it's been a few months. And it's
Cool.
funny that you did a static generator. I probably should have had you in last week because our hackathon was building a static generator.
Oh, cool.
So
Yeah, I saw the links for that. Yeah.
yeah. So very relevant to we just literally finished it yesterday or yesterday or this morning actually.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. I know it's like the holiday season and the turnout's low. That's kind of why we are not so much focused on the hackathons this week. But again, I just wanted to take a minute and thank everyone for joining us on 2 days before Christmas. Perfect.
Drop my Twitter right there. If anyone wants to send me a message, you have any questions, you want to know more about any of this stuff, you want to know more about Redwood.js, at least I'm on the team for that. So yeah, I'm available. I love talking about this stuff.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Anthony. Truly appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Take
Have
care.
a good one.
Yeah, you too. Bye.